and I had planned on talking with the paper about the possibility of us writing some type of piece about discussing about how important it is. I also know that the landfill this month has currently been updating their, I'm sorry, not the landfill, the Howard Center has been updating their what we take list, and that they're in the process of sending that out to all the new consumers, so everyone knows what's out there, what's available to be recycled. But one of the things that I did find quite interesting in the research is if you look, we're pretty consistent that 85% of the tonnage that is dealt with in this city goes to the landfill, and 15% roughly goes to the recycling center. According to the EPA, almost 75% of everything that ends up in a landfill is actually recyclable. So if you take into consideration that our recycling rate is 15%, that we're significantly underutilizing our opportunity to save money through recycling. And a lot of people worry about how their utility bills end up for the city. Well, here's a particular instance where everyone in particular can have an impact on how your utility bills end up. If we were, just to even give you an idea, if you would even be able to double the amount of that ratio, as far as double the amount that goes into recycling rather than into trash, we would see a significant reduction just in the cost, and therefore actually the rates that we charge customers based upon the savings that would be made just in that circumstance, and it would be significant in that situation. You're talking about a doubling of your recycling could be as much as a $4 a month savings in your trash bill. That's how significant it is.
Any idea? Okay, ours splits 85% to the landfill, 15% recycled. Would you have that off the top of your head? Have any statistics in other communities? Let's say the ideal community, or
I did do a little bit of comparison, not much, because I didn't want to focus on something that I didn't think was believable. Some of the best communities as far as recycling goes are on the West Coast. Most of them have somewhere in the neighborhood of a 75 to 25% range. Now, you do see in some communities where you have more aggressive activities, and that's something that I've actually started talking about the possibility of proposing. What I mean by aggressive is Waste Management, particularly out in the state of Washington, does a pickup audit, where what they're doing is an audit of compliance, and where they will basically occasionally come through and look at your trash, and if they pick up, if they find 2 of your 3 bags are full of recycling, they'll leave your bags. And they even go as far as, if you do it a second time, they fine you. So, I mean, and of course they do all this with the behest of local government, but this is some of the more aggressive scenarios you see, and the compliance is, of course, ends up being almost twice of what we see here. But an average community, just to give you an idea, is more of an 80-20. An average community, about 5%.
Adam, did you ever look into, I know we talked about the city of Cherokee and how they take care of their recycling versus garbage. Did you ever look into that?
How the separation processes they use there?
Yes.
We talked about 2 different things, and I don't think the council actually is aware of this right now. One of the things that we had talked about was that Cherokee has a separation process. Actually, our Howard Center has a separation process for the recyclables there. Their separation doesn't separate trash from recycling, but it separates recyclables there. So they do have some of that in place there.
Because all of their recycling goes into their trash. They do not have recycling bins in Cherokee, but in some way, shape, or form, it is sorted after it's picked up. So I don't know what that process is, but
it's sorted on a belt as the stuff comes through. It's hand-picked.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's pretty much what Howard Center is doing for recyclables. They're not doing it for trash, but they are doing it for recycling currently at the Howard Center. Some. I mean, there's some separation that we do that improves theirs. And there's another, actually, opportunity for improvement. A lot of people don't realize that one of the biggest complications you can cause to recycling practices is when you put out a 55-gallon barrel full of recyclables. Because what that means from our perspective is our haulers pick that up and then they have to dump it out because they have to make sure it's all one thing. Well, as you can imagine, whereas if you had them in little, even if you had nothing more than 1 or 2 little of the red totes, how quick that is compared to a 55-gallon tub that I have to dump out and sort through and find everything. It actually takes longer to do those houses with 55-gallon or 40-gallon tubs than it does anything else during the recycling day. The other thing we had talked about was I had talked with Region 12 about the prospects. There is grant money out there available to provide recycling bins to some commercial customers. So I have done just some initial discussions with Fred Kesting around there about the prospects of how that grant process works.
Okay. Any other comments?
I have a question. I know it's a very, very insignificant example, but we had some pizza a while back and didn't eat the crusts. And my wife was going to throw them down on the disposal. And I said, just throw them in the garbage. Now, which one is the best place to put it? Because I've heard Alvin complain constantly about all the crap that goes down through the sewer system. And he's got to maintain the sewer system and the recycling portion of that. Are we better off to just throw it in the garbage?
You're better off just eat the crust.
I don't think you can have eaten these.
Throw it out for the deer.
I'll be happy.
Bird feed. You got the bird feeders. Put 'em in bird feeders.
I'll be happy to get an opinion and let you know. And I'll be happy to include that.
And again, you know, that's just why I say it's a simple example, but some of the things that we run down our disposals could just as easily go into the garbage. And vice versa.
I think anything that would break down would be okay to go into a garbage. They're more concerned about things that take 100 years to break down, and a pizza crust will probably go break.
Well, they won't break down out there because there's things about it.
Jim Shelley called my office last week and talked about being able to get this information out to people, and I suggested that he go through the utility bills if possible to do that, although not all communities in the county have envelopes that they send this stuff out. But I also asked him about, you know, the access channels on TV. I mean, you know, there's various things. If in fact it is our commercial that's not, I mean, they don't recycle paper and stuff. I mean, in our office we do a darn good job, but a lot of commercial places don't, and I think it's because of the shredding possibilities. That we need to make sure that they understand that they can shred it and then throw it in the recycling.
Right, and that's something I actually heard from one of the commercial customers recently. They go, well, I have to shred all my paper. And I said, well, you know, you need to talk to Mr. Shelley. I went out and talked to him, and he said shredded paper's fine.
Yeah.
And they didn't. I think that's one of the things that we're up against, and I'm guilty of that as anyone else. Misinformation is one of our biggest challenges. I myself was not, up till recently, certain things weren't getting recycled at my house. That after reevaluation, you know what, these things could be recycled too.
Yeah.
And it was just more of a matter of knowing what my limits were.
Sure.
And what can be recycled and what can't.
And we just need to do better. I think in businesses sometimes they think, oh, we don't want to bother with that, but they just need to do it too.
A great example is that occasionally when I would end up in Carroll or Storm Lake, I would always save up my plastic bags and end up taking them there. Well, what you'll see in your new report from the landfill, or from the Howard Center, is that they will now take plastic bags for recycling purposes.
Oh, really?
And that is one of the new additions that we were just told about in the last 2 weeks.
So many
That is
of
coming.
those.
Is there any grant money for the green shopping bags?
You know, I'll ask Fred. He said that most of the grant money that he's aware of has focused towards commercial recycling because in most communities, commercial recycling lags behind residential recycling.
Marshall County just passed a resolution outlawing those plastic bags in Marshall County. In any commercial businesses in the unincorporated areas of Marshall County.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.